Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's my great pleasure as Head of University College to welcome you to this very special exhibition and the 2019 Broughton Seminar on William Hogarth, Art, Politics and Philanthropy in 18th Century England. And we respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging. It's a particular pleasure to welcome back our speaker for this evening, Dr. Lynn Broughton, who is a University College alumna from 1964, a governor and a visiting fellow of the college. Lynn, it's lovely to have you with us. Many of you, of course, will recall Lynn's wonderful seminar and exhibition last year, which was on the life and works of her close friend and PhD supervisor, the late Professor Jan Srebnitsky. And no doubt you're all looking forward very much, as I am, to hearing from Lynn again this evening, and we are honoured to have her address us. Now, of course, Lynn is well known to many of you and needs no introduction. However, for those of you who may not be aware, her story is a remarkable one, which I'll share with you briefly. At the age of 10, Lynn migrated to Australia from England with her family. She grew up in Melbourne and attended McRobertson Girls High School before studying at the University of Melbourne, where she obtained her BA Honours in 1968. During this time, she resided here at what was then University Women's College for 4 years. She subsequently completed her PhD at the University of Melbourne in 1979, and her thesis was supervised by the late Professor Jan Srebnitsky, as I mentioned earlier. Lynn has a distinguished academic career, having lectured in philosophy and art history at the University of Cambridge and at Lincoln Theological College. She has published books on Lincoln and Ely cathedrals and has authored a number of publications on philosophy, theology and church architecture. Lynn is also currently working on an expanded version of her earlier book on Lincoln Cathedral, which was originally published in 1996. Lynn was ordained as a minister at Ely Cathedral in 2000 and currently ministers at a group of rural parishes near Cambridge, where she lives with her husband, Nick Denyer, who's a fellow of Trinity College. Lynn is also an associate priest, non-stipendiary, in the Cheveley group of parishes and a deanery locum in the Fordham and Key Deanery, Ely Diocese. She's a member of the Executive Committee and the Information Panel of the Cambridgeshire Historical Churches Trust, as well as an advisor on the Diocese of Ely Bishops' Advisory Committee on the Care of Churches, and also she's a member of the Redundant Churches Uses Committee. On her return visits to Melbourne in recent years, Lynn has very much enjoyed her engagement in adult education while teaching at the University of the Third Age. She's also delivered a series of incredibly insightful Broughton seminars here in college. In addition, Lynn and her family have been most generous donors to University College through a number of special gifts for which we are truly grateful. And this includes the wonderful Industry and Idleness engravings of 1747 by William Hogarth, which are on display tonight. As many of you will probably know, they were gifted to the college by Lynn's mother-in-law, Mrs. Dorothy Denyer, in 2014, and through Lynn's generous support have since been conserved and framed. Lynn has told us the delightful story of how the engravings were purchased by her husband Nick's late father and displayed on a wall beside the staircase in Nick's childhood home. This was done intentionally to illustrate the rewards of hard work and diligence compared with the perils of laziness. Of course, what better place for them than the college? We are absolutely thrilled to have this fascinating series of engravings here at University College and trust that our students will heed the salutary tale they tell. The prints around the room are digital copies that have been purpose framed so that the originals can be stored to archive standard practice in the college's archives. And these prints will be displayed in the new wings of the college, which is to be officially opened by the Chancellor of the University of Melbourne, Mr. Alan Myers, ACQC, in August. And you will all be invited, of course, to this very special event on the 7th of August. So so please save the date. And tonight we're proud to promote the University College Art Collection, and we encourage members of the college community to become involved wherever you can. Some of our works need frames and restoration, and many of our works need labelling. If you can help, the college accepts tax-deductible donations as well as the donation of artworks themselves. For we do everything we can to ensure all of our works are on display for our students and our community to enjoy. But now it's time to hear from Lynn, who will be sharing with us her knowledge and findings on the life and times of William Hogarth, art, philosophy and philanthropy in the 18th century. This presentation will run for approximately 40 to 50 minutes, and we will then have beverages and canapes served for supper. And this will give you the opportunity to ask Lynn any questions and see the works in closer detail. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lynn Broughton.
Well, I would like to begin this talk by thanking Jennifer for asking me to talk about the Hogarth prints. Also, Kerry Ann of the Bailey Library for arranging the loan of some prints from the University Library collection, which we're here for most of this afternoon. And also, of course, Sam, whose enthusiasm, hard work and superb organisation has enabled this exhibition and talk to take place. I also feel it necessary to say that I make no claim to being an expert on Hogarth. So I do hope that all the Hogarth experts in the audience will forgive my mistakes. A few years ago, as Jennifer has said, I was able to facilitate the donation of some original Hogarth prints to the college, these prints here. And the main reason why I've been asked to give this talk is to explain briefly how these prints came to be in the possession of a family who were neither rich nor particularly knowledgeable about art. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the provenance of the prints, and then move to the main part of my talk, which is of course the introduction to Hogarth's art and the context. And as a final flourish, I propose to pull the rabbit out of the hat. After my father-in-law's death, when his widow Dorothy was looking for a good home for the Hogarth prints in her possession, I was able to rather tentatively suggest that they be donated to this college. Dorothy was delighted. She said that she had, for many years, wanted to find a way of thanking Australia for the food parcels which had been sent to Britain during and immediately after the Second World War. They had been a great boon at a time of serious deprivation, and she remembered them with much gratitude. The story begins with my father-in-law, Ronald Denyon. He came from a respectable working-class family in South London. His father was a chauffeur whose job involved driving the executives of the co-op to their various committee meetings and inspections. A clever boy, he won a scholarship to Christ's Hospital School, one of the top public schools in England, where he excelled in science, though he hated having to wear the school uniform. From there, he gained an exhibition, a form of scholarship, to Magdalen College, Oxford, the first in his family to attend a university. This was during World War II, in fact from 1943 to 1946. But he was not called up to join the army. Instead, he was formally instructed to continue his university studies in chemistry because this was what the country needed. In order to help more directly with the war effort, he joined the Volunteer Home Guard and served with them in his spare time throughout the war years. In the university vacations, he got jobs to earn some extra money to supplement his scholarship. There were 4 girls on the course he was studying, one of whom, Maggie Roberts, later gained prominence as Margaret Thatcher. One obtained a very good degree, and by the time that his results were available, he had a good job to go to. With the final £7 of his scholarship money, he bought the volume of original Hogarth prints, from which those on display have come. He and his wife Dorothy had 2 sons, Nicholas and Christopher, and as Jennifer has told us, in order to teach them the importance of hard work, he framed the prints of the lazy and industrious apprentices and hung them on the wall, up the staircase, into the bedrooms. Every day, they saw how the 2 apprentices, who began as equals, progressed, one from bad to worse, ending on the gallows, the other gradually improving until he becomes Lord Mayor of London. This educational strategy seems to have worked because both boys turned out well. Indeed, the elder, Nicholas, is now a Fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge. So let us turn to Hogarth and his art. Since this is far more wide-ranging than can possibly even be hinted at in one short talk, I propose to follow a thread through this rich tapestry, using my title of Art, Politics and Philanthropy. Hogarth came from a lower middle class family and was apprenticed to an engraver. He worked hard, he was very industrious, and he gradually became known also for his skill in painting, particularly as a portrait painter. And at the same time, he continued to produce engravings. Indeed, many of his paintings were also produced as engravings. He also had views on the practicalities of art, producing a treatise on beauty and various prints showing aspects of artistic skill. The satire on false perspective, of which we have a print here, shows the hazards of lack of understanding of perspective, showing as it does a whole range of ludicrous effects. And there's a non-exhaustive list of those effects hanging under the picture over there. I decided that I can't possibly take you through all of them, so I'll just show a couple. There's a woman leaning out of a window, lighting the pipe of the man on a hill behind her house, and a herd of cattle in which the more distant ones are larger than those close to us. As I said, there's a great deal more there. He has really packed it in. And the importance of knowing something about perspective is, I think, evident in this illumination. It comes from a 15th century manuscript in the British Library in London. And his painter was not actually trying to show a scene with perspective. It hasn't any background or anything like that. But he needs it, as is evident when we look at this. The 2 canopy bearers on the right-hand side are in an impossible relationship with the canopy and with each other. But Hogarth is best known for his moral satires on various forms of misbehaviour. He is by some considered a satirist and caricaturist, simply lampooning the sins and foibles of his time. But like his treatises on the theory and practice of art, his satirical prints and paintings were intended to be educational, showing the good effects of, for instance, hard work and study, and the ill effects for both the individual and the wider society of making the wrong moral choices. He strongly rejected the claim that he was a caricaturist. He was rather very interested in portraying different characters, and we shall see later how this is shown in some of his portraits. But it is shown in another of those prints, which is quite an object lesson for university lecturers, I think, because the lecturer is lecturing on a very dull topic, and the students are, well, reacting in various unlikely ways. Well, since we've just seen a modern educational use of Hogarth's series, Industry and Idleness, which are here, let's look at that series more closely. Hogarth's moral prints and paintings always contain a great deal of detail. In fact, in most of them, even the tiniest detail is significant. And I shall simply point out some of the more obvious of these. And perhaps after my talk, those of you who haven't had time to have a look at the prints might like to look more closely and take notice of further details. Industry and Idleness begins with the two apprentices together at work, or rather, one at work and one lazy. Francis Goodchild, on the right, is busily working. Tom Idle, on the left, is asleep, propped against a beam of the loom, with the cat playing with his shuttle and likely to make havoc of the whole thread pretty soon. Their futures are symbolised in the details on the outside of the frame. On the left, a whip, fetters, and a rope. On the right, the sword of state, a ceremonial mace, and a golden chain. And after this, their stories diverge further and further. Francis Goodchild is at church on Sunday with the master's daughter, devoutly following the service. Tom Idle is out in the churchyard, leaning on a tomb, gambling and cheating at dice. And the suggestion that he's cheating comes from the way he is holding his hat so close to the dice. And a beadle is about to strike him. Francis now has been promoted and is helping to run the business. He's holding a purse of money, the house keys, and the day book. And there are workers in the background at their looms, the suggestion being that Francis is in charge of those workers. Tom has given up on his apprenticeship, or has been perhaps cast off for his laziness, and is off to try his fortune at sea. One cannot expect him to do any better at that than he has been at his apprenticeship. Francis, having completed his apprenticeship, has married his master's daughter and is now a partner in the firm, as can be seen on the sign at the top, distributing charity from the shop, and from the house. Whereas Tom has descended further into idleness and degradation, living in a squalid room with a prostitute, they have been startled awake by the noise of a cat and some bricks falling down the disintegrating chimney. And clearly he is in terror of being discovered. You can see that the door has been propped up with planks so that no one can easily get in. Francis, now rich and Sheriff of London, presides at a feast. He and those near him, in the background of the picture, behave very well. But in the foreground are gluttons tearing at their food and stuffing it into their mouths. It's not only the poor and underprivileged who behave badly. Tom, now a thief and a murderer, is betrayed by his whore and arrested. In the bottom right corner of the picture, we see an accomplice throwing the corpse of a murdered man through a trapdoor, while Tom and his accomplice count the money they have stolen from him. And we shall see the rascally accomplice again in the next print. Francis and Tom meet again, for Tom's accomplice has turned accuser, and Francis must judge Tom for his crimes. Inevitably, Tom is sentenced to death, and his final fate is shown as he is taken in a tumbrel to the gallows of Tyburn. The sides of the frame now show hanging skeletons. And finally, the good and industrious apprentice becomes Lord Mayor of London, seen going in procession in the ceremonial carriage. The sides of the frame here are decorated with cornucopias, overflowing with the good things that Francis has deserved by his industry. Well, it's not only the sins of the lower classes that Hogarth satirised. He also took on the rich and influential in his series Marriage on a Mode. In this, the habit of, in effect, buying and selling young people in marriage is shown to have dire effects. In the first painting, a rich merchant is paying for his daughter to be married to the son of an aristocrat. The bride and groom are clearly not at all interested in each other, but a good-looking young lawyer is very attentive to her. The Lord has one foot up on the stool. He has gout caused by overindulgence, and in his left hand he holds an unrolled scroll showing the long genealogy of his very important family, stemming from, at the bottom, a knight in medieval armour. The bride's father is very rich and miserly, but willing to pay a large dowry in order to move his family into the aristocracy. And he's making sure that he looks very carefully at the marriage contract to make sure all is in order. While at the bottom left of the picture, two dogs chained together show the likely results of this marriage. Next we see a morning view of the married couple. Each has been out late to different places. She sits with her legs apart, an unladylike and suggestive attitude. He has been in a fight, as is shown by a broken sword at his feet. He has also been visiting his mistress, or a brother. The dog is pulling from his pocket a woman's cap. And the broken sword also has sexual connotations. Meanwhile, their steward laments their indifference to the unpaid bills. In the next scene, the husband and his very young mistress are both suffering from syphilis, for which they seek a cure from a quack doctor. By this time, the old Earl has died. Husband and wife are now Earl and Countess, and for a while at least, they no longer have to be worrying about the unpaid bills. She sits at her toilette, ignoring her visitors, and the young lawyer reclines beside her. The Earl has caught his wife with her lover, the lawyer, who has killed him, and is escaping in his underclothes through the window as the watch breaks through the door. And finally, the Countess hears that her lover has been caught and executed. She has been living in poverty and now takes poison. The nurse brings her child for a final kiss. The iron support on its leg shows that it has inherited syphilis. Her miserly father, meanwhile, takes the ring from her finger, while the servant who brought the poison is chided by the doctor. London was the great metropolis. It offered opportunities and temptations not available in country towns. The population of London grew enormously during the 18th century, from 575,000 in the year 1700. By 1750, it had grown to 756,000. This great influx of newcomers stretched the city's resources beyond breaking point. There was much poverty and disease, and alcoholism was rife. Home distilled gin was a readily available means of escape, and there was no control of the alcohol content. On the other hand, beer, with its lower alcohol content, was also readily available. So Hogarth's Gin Lane and Beer Street are attempts to show the difference between the two and the different social effects of the two. Gin Lane has lots of drunkards. The buildings are decrepit and falling down. In the foreground, a drunken woman drops her baby over the balustrade. Most people are starving. At the middle left, a man is pawning the tools of his trade to pay for gin. So he will no longer be able to work for his living. In Beer Street, people are well fed. Food is being sold. A sign is being repainted. There is a decrepit house, but it is the pawnbroker's. There is no need for his business here. It would be all too easy for us to dismiss Hogarth's various moral tales as simply money-making ploys. They sold well, and he did, after all, make a good living out of the various print series. But he was motivated by genuine kindness and a desire to do some good in society, as is particularly shown in his series, The 4 Stages of Cruelty.
Take this opportunity to formally thank Lynn. And Lynn, it always amazes me the way in which you manage to share your detailed knowledge and research in a way that's both accessible and thoroughly enjoyable. And tonight, of course, your insights into Hogarth and his times have been absolutely fascinating. So on behalf of everyone here tonight, our sincere thanks for the time and expertise that you brought to this, and for the wonderful interest that you continue to show in the college. Please join me in thanking them. Before we conclude, I would also like to acknowledge and thank the University of Melbourne Archives team, which Lynn mentioned earlier, led by Kerry-Anne Stone, who, as you know, loaned some pieces to the college for this exhibition. And I'd also like to thank Petra Kaiser from the National Gallery of Victoria for her meetings with Lynn and the recent weeks in which they've been able to discuss their Hogarth collections. I'd also like to acknowledge the college's own archivist, Ian Forster, who's with us this evening, and our advancement manager, Sam Hawkins, both of whom played a major role in facilitating the conservation and the framing of the engravings and setting up this exhibition. So I thank them both most sincerely for it. So that concludes the formalities for this evening. Thank you all for attending and for your wonderful support for the college. Now please enjoy your supper and your conversations together, and Lynn will be available for questions. Thank you.